Welcome to Step Study Leader Training. My name is Mike. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I found freedom from selfish pride, lustful thoughts, and uncontrollable anger. By choosing to lead a step study, you're working out your 12th step. You're giving back to others what you have received in your recovery. This is an awesome privilege to share the experience, strength, and hope you received and provide encouragement, guidance, and structure to participants as they are on their 12-step journey. We're going to review the roles and objectives of being a successful step study leader, as well as the format is going to look for each class. First, you and your Celebrate Recovery Ministry leader should choose a co-leader for this step study. Decide ahead of time the responsibility each of you will have for each class. These include opening and closing in prayer, reading the guidelines, leading the participant guide discussions, sharing any announcements, and closing in prayer. You and the co-leader should be on the same page. Unity is so important. Respect each other. Try not to interrupt each other during the meeting. Be prepared to discuss any questions or conflict with each other after the meeting ends. All conflicts should be resolved completely before the next meeting. Always include your CR director if you are unable to resolve any conflict swiftly in one conversation. When leading a step study, be careful how many people you sponsor. I know you have a big heart and a lot of knowledge you want to share, but you also want to keep a balanced life and a balanced approach so you don't burn out. During the meetings, remember that the guidelines apply to you and the co-leader. In fact, you are setting the example for everyone in the group. As the leader, you facilitate the meeting, but also take part in sharing your answers from the workbooks. You should read your answer first and be sure to indicate who will be following you. We recommend you go clockwise from your left. Let's talk about the meeting format. Most step studies at Christ Fellowship take place on Tuesdays after the large group time. So let's discuss the timing and format for the most effective use of this time. First, be ready to start the meeting 5 minutes after large group dismisses. Setting that expectation will let your participants know they cannot get sidetracked with conversation after large group. You or the co-leader should plan to be the first one in the room to welcome group members. The leader or co-leader should start with the introduction of himself or herself, starting with, "I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ," and then say your area of recovery. Third, begin with prayer, whichever leader has been assigned to pray, and keep it encouraging and uplifting. All participants should do short introductions following the example of the leader. Be sure to give the explanation to any new members. Introductions should be done consistently for the first few weeks until each member is known. There will be a time in the study that introductions will no longer be necessary. Next, the assigned leader reads the CR small group guidelines. It's important to read the guidelines every week, beginning from week 1 until the very last week. The first few weeks, we recommend you read the extended group guidelines, which helps members understand each guideline and why they are in place. After a few weeks, reading the shortened version of the guidelines is fine, but if some struggle with adhering to them, you'll want to go back and read the extended version the following week. Sixth, whenever the group begins a new lesson, please read the acrostic from the participant's guide. The leader or co-leader can read it or have the members read it going around the room. As soon as the acrostic is done, the leader should read the first question of the lesson and read their answer. Seventh, it's very important for each member to read their answers to each question as they have written them in their copy of their participant guide. This is the key to the whole step study. In fact, the member will only get out of each step of this step study class what they have prepared in advance by reading the questions and writing their answers. Every question should be read and answered in the group. Unlike open share groups, in step study there is no declining to participate in reading and answering. If a member is reluctant or unwilling to answer, the leader should meet with them or her after the class to determine why. It may be the member needs to wait for a future step study. This really takes spiritual maturity and wisdom to balance truth and grace. You should bring the CR director into the conversation if you or the participant feel they should leave the group. Encourage participants to listen to each other. The answers that are being said, be ready. Have a pen and paper ready to write down the aha moments, what they're learning from each other as they listen. And as you get further into the lessons, as the leader can review the questions ahead of time, determine if there are some that have related topics and you can combine them. It's appropriate to thank participants after they have completed sharing, especially if the question is difficult and had an emotional response. Keep this as simple as, "Thank you for sharing," and then move on to the next participant. Remember, the goal is not to rush, but to complete as many questions as possible in 1 hour. Some nights you may only get through a portion of the questions, and some nights you may get more than one lesson completed. 8th, be sure to close in prayer. Leave 5 minutes at the end of your class to take prayer requests, and then the assigned leader or participant closes in prayer. Be sure to ask for any praise reports and celebrate them as well. Dismissal should be no more than 1 hour from your start time. Then remind members which lessons will be due the following week, and then also remind them to stay in the lobby time and continue making deeper friendships. If you have a group chat or text going for the step study, you can also use that as a method to communicate information. I find that having that way to communicate with the group can really be useful to make the group become a community. One of the opportunities you will have as a step study leader is guiding your group through their 4th step. This is challenging, but it will be both gratifying and rewarding. Here is some training taking your participants through their participant guide, book 2. First, in lesson 7 on sponsors, you should emphasize to participants that they should not begin their inventory without having a sponsor or accountability partner. Ideally, before lesson 7 on sponsors, participants will have already started or even completed the process of assembling their accountability team. Completing the inventory with the courage and enthusiasm depends greatly on the people with whom we surround ourselves. Stress the importance of the sponsor and accountability partner as we navigate this process. Then in lesson 8 on moral, the participants will confirm their commitment to the inventory process. Participants begin step study looking for hope. Answering the questions in this lesson confirms their desire to do whatever is necessary to grow. They may feel apprehensive as they start contemplating and writing down experiences they have tried hard to forget. Encourage them that you understand their fear. You've been there, but you can reassure them that it's so worth it in the end. In lesson 9 on inventory, participants will receive instructions on using the inventory worksheet. For the best results in explaining this worksheet to group members, take one column at a time and thoroughly explain it. Explain its design, explain its purpose. Then tying the columns together will be much easier for you to explain it and for the participant to comprehend it. Some of the participants may have difficulty writing their inventory in the column format. That's okay. The columns are a tool, but the participants can be creative in the way they compose their inventory. The goal is to get them to think, remember, and write. How they choose the final look of the inventory is really up to them. It is vital that the participants accept ownership of their behavior, whether good or bad. We don't place responsibility of our poor choices on the laps of others. Neither do we lavish credit on others for our successes. Balance is the key. Keeping inventories balanced will keep us from turning step 4 into a process of self-deprecation, aka self-hate. Remember, we are a child of the King Jesus, a brand new creation. He loves us despite our failures. Our lives are filled with many positives that we need to give ourselves credit. Teach participants to highlight vital points in the answers on the spiritual inventory 1 and 2 and transfer them onto the inventory worksheet. This helps put people, places, events, causes, and effects in their proper column as we start to compose our inventory. Remember, strike the balance between success and failure. Finally, there will probably be some in your step study that do not complete their inventory before it's time to move on in the book. That's okay. The later lessons will help them continue to fill out their inventory. It's important to keep reminding participants they need to be sharing their inventory with their sponsor and accountability partner. Here's another helpful hint. You can have participants share just 1 or 2 items from their inventory in the group setting the week that you cover it in your lesson. This will help them get a start, but it's not meant to have them to share something extremely personal or take away from sharing with their sponsor or accountability partner. And here are some suggestions to keep step 4 positive. First, the person or event column. Who or what has brought me joy? The cause. What specific action occurred to encourage me? The effect. What positive effect did that action have on my life? The benefit. What positive effects did that action have on my basic instincts? And my part. What part of joy am I responsible for? Congratulations, you are now ready to lead your step study.